driving for a while and you feel like you've hit a plateau and you're just not improving anymore. You've upgraded your hardware, but you're still not able to be as fast as you would like. Well, guess what? I did that too, okay? I'm as guilty as you are. And that's exactly why Racine and myself created what we call the advanced way to learn. By using the techniques that we're about to show you, we were able to win national championships, and we're now coaching real-life drivers and sim racers all across the globe. So let me tell you why you absolutely need this to improve your racing skills. On this platform, you'll go through 5 learning steps. The first one is going to be to watch video lessons so you can take in all that theory. The second step will be to answer quizzes. We've created some questions to test your knowledge. Next, you'll have to partake in challenges. Here, you'll have to prove to yourself that you can apply what you've learned. You'll go on track and you'll try to beat the instructor's lap times for sector times. Following the challenge, you'll be able to send your onboard replay so instructors and other community members can help you improve. And lastly, you can get involved in the community to meet some new teammates and learn from others. This platform is a back and forth discussion between us, the instructor, and you, the students. If you're serious about becoming the best driver out there, this is the advanced way to learn.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hello everybody and welcome to Suzuka for the penultimate round of the PRL GTP GT3 Series here on Thursday nights. We're really winding down to the end of our season now, and one of our titles could be decided tonight. The GTP Championship will go to Road America next week. That much is confirmed already, but GT3 could be seeing a champion, although it is unlikely, at the end of this evening's proceedings. Myself, Ian Leary and Darragh Thacker will be taking you through them with another hour race, and I'm looking forward to this one, Darragh. It's not a traditional multi-class circuit, although it's not unfamiliar. It is very, very narrow indeed, and a big challenge for absolutely everybody.
Yeah, and we saw this track early on in the calendar in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge earlier on in the season. Now this, in the GTP GT3 Series late in the calendar, kind of adds a bit of a different dynamic. Going to be interesting just to kind of see how the drivers can get themselves here at Suzuka, very different to Sebring, where we were last week, and see how they can perform, because some drivers really need some big points to keep themselves relevant with only 1 week to go.
Absolutely. Let's go through some of those points implications as we look at the GTP Championship first of all. Pat Pelchat leading by 30 points. You may think, well, he has got enough of a gap there to maybe see it tonight. Well, not quite, because Nathan Ray's drop score at the moment is 38. The maximum Pelchat can gain is 19, and that is not quite enough, so it doesn't really matter. He's a long way ahead. Edwin Onofra's three top threes in the last 3 weeks has got him third, rather ironically. Andrew Ellis and Miguel Rios round out the top 5 with another 4 points back to Matthew Denis. Bradley Holly, who made his 500th appearance last night in the PRL, is ahead of Neil Alexander, Drew Duessy and Barry Cochrane, rounding out the top 10. In the GTP team standings, it is still up for grabs here, with just 28 points separating Aerotechnics and Solpec. Waterback Racing a third ahead of the two Parabola teams, with Techsport Academy in 6th place pretty much confirmed. They're ahead of SRT in Project 91. Driven Esports and Furious Sport have not scored points for a little while. They'll be finishing down towards the bottom. Jim Feliz, in theory, can clinch this GT3 title tonight, although he would need an astonishing amount of things to go his way. He's only 19 points ahead of Ken Copeland going into today, ahead of Brett Gardner, who is up there as well, and Michael Brooks. Those four are the realistic candidates for the title. Evan Henneman rounds out the top 5. He's got a fight on to keep that position though. Matthew Motoro's 1 point behind. Eduardo Aguiar 4 behind. Joey Costello 6 behind, and Carl Robertson 8 behind. It will be very close indeed, with Bowie Suin bringing up the rear of the top 10 in GT3. The team standings are very much going SRTE's way as things stand, with the wrong stuff in 2nd place. Techsport Academy 3rd ahead of Drive Trainer and Waterback. Then the other Drive Trainer team are 6th, just a few points ahead of Solpec. Then Rogue Racing, Tachyon Simsport and Championship Racing Collective round out the top 10. Before we go any further, let's thank the sponsors that make these broadcasts possible here in the PRL on RaceSpotTV, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on Airstar products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Bookkicker products an incredible immersion of realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And finally, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. A big thanks to all of those sponsors who make these broadcasts possible each and every night on RaceSpotTV. And as I say, it is the last week, next week, in all of the championships, at least at the start of the week. We do have a title fight on. It is still open as well in the Truck Series that ended last night, although Richard Regan Jr. is the favourite to take that title. It is not quite certain yet, so make sure you tune in next Wednesday for the conclusion of that one. And of course, starting next Sunday night, we will be bringing you the conclusion of the NASCAR Cup Series, which has the top 3 covered by just 6 points going into the final race at Atlanta. So very much hope you can join us next week for final week in the PRL, apart from on Tuesday night. Final week is, of course, in 7 days' time in the GTP GT3 Series. That will be at Road America, where we'll be live from 9 p.m. ET as always. this race is about setting yourself up for that very much. And as things stand, it's Dave Menino who's got the fastest time, although we are very early in the session. I mean, exemplified by the fact that Pat Pelchat is currently 19 seconds off the pace. I can't see that going to last for very much longer.
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a shock if he ended up that far off the pole time. I think it's fair to say a driver who's been so consistent for such a long time, not just in this machinery, but in the PRL in general. So we'll have to see if he can improve. I'm sure he will. But as you said, this is kind of a set-up race before we get into the finale. But with the championship leads that we're seeing, particularly the likes of Pelchat having, realistically, this is just a race, a case of surviving. His drop round is 41 points. That is worst case scenario for him. Of course, he can't drop any points next week, but just to kind of put himself as far away as he possibly can will be priority number one, to put himself in a situation where all he needs to do is finish next week, and then he can take the title home.
Exactly. The point system does make it very, very possible that will just be the case, really. In GTP so far, I should use last week as an example probably, the lowest driver to score points scored 36. That was Bradley Holly. That means you probably need to be within 21, and that would mean Nathan Ray would need to have a good day, although that is possible for him to get within that kind of distance, but he would probably need 2 bad races in a row from Pat Pelchat, which seems like it's going to be difficult. In GT3, it will be a lot more open. Michael Brooks is only 5 points off second, for example, and he's down in 4th. We're just riding on board with him as Edwin Onofre goes to the top of the standings. What about Pat Pelchat? Will he now finally get on the board in a time a little bit more accustomed to what we're seeing here this season? Over the line for him, it's not pole, but it is back up to the top 5 again. 3rd place for Pat Pelchat there.
Yeah, good time. Good to see him getting back towards the front of the field, but interesting that he's not quite there to get onto the front row just yet. Edwin Onofre with the good performance. We'll see if he can hold on to that. Likes of Dave Menino, the likes of Timothy Friis-Larsen, drivers who have had a couple of good results so far this season. Wouldn't mind another one, particularly at this stage of the season where, a lot of drivers near the front are going to be focusing on the championship. Those drivers who are a little bit further back are just driving for pride, and they could find opportunities for them as well. So lots of storylines throughout the field, and good to see a few more names near the front than we usually see.
Darian Roy has messaged in saying that he's gutted to be missing this one because he absolutely loves Suzuka, and we of course wish him well with his ongoing recovery from surgery. Hopefully he'll be back next season for some more GTP GT3 action. As we look at Pat Pelchat, has just been overtaken by I was thinking about Darren Roy. Shane Larson, who moves up to 3rd place. Wasn't here last week, was Shane Larson, and so he has lost some more crucial ground in the championship because he's missed 2 rounds now. He's a long way off of the top of the standings, and of course he's got 50 penalty points as well, which is effectively an entire race win wiped away, which is very difficult for him to overcome. But moves up to 3rd now. As we have a look at Pat Pelchat here, you can see his predicted time there was going rather well. So can he get those 5/10 of a second to overtake Edwin Onofre? It might even require a 41, but is he able to produce one here? Pat Pelchat, he might well do. Over the line, not quite a 41, it's not quite pole either. 2nd place by just less than 1/10 of a second for Pat Pelchat. Yeah, and he's looking like he's not going to be able to extend that championship lead by the extra point. Edwin Onofre is doing absolutely everything he can to try and keep himself in championship contention. He may find himself out of it by the end of the day, but even so, he's doing his utmost to keep himself there, and he's really driven really consistently the last few weeks. Those three top threes, 3 third places even, to get him 3rd in the championship have really exemplified how he's got there. The consistency that he's shown really deserves his spot near the top of the tree, and great to see him getting what looks like it's going to be pole, or at least for the time being, because it would be his 1st of the season. It would indeed. As we look at Miguel Rios here, not many are out on the circuit now because lap times are pretty much finished here. Dave Menino's going okay as things stand. He's currently 5th place in the standings and was on top of the standings early on, don't forget, and now has dropped to 5th place since, but as far as my time is going to show me, he's going okay. Miguel Rios is also going okay. In the Cadillac here, you can see making his way towards 130R, 1.3 seconds off Edwin Onofre just for the moment. To gain even 1 place, Miguel Rios would only need 14 thousandths of a second. To gain 2, he'd need 22 thousandths. It's a bit more of a jump from 7th from 8th, but he could very much get onto 8th place, although that's a big slide. Has that just undone his hard work? No, not quite. He has got up to 8th place at least there. in 6th, in fact, for Miguel Rios with that late lap time. As Nathan Ray looks through the final couple of corners, he needs to produce a lap time here.
Yeah, not got long to do it. Through the Casio triangle we go. Looks all nice and calm on the rear end for the 35 car. He's currently in P12. Can he move up any couple of rows? Let's see as he crosses the line. His best was a 43.7. He's going to improve by half a second. But it's only going to get him up to P12, I do believe. Or it could have been an invalidated lap, actually, there for him. So gutting towards the end because he may have gained more positions than he clearly has.
Yep, and he's starting a long way back. As I mentioned, second in the championship. He needs points, as does Edwin Onofre, but he's got off to the perfect start by taking pole here at Suzuka. We'll see his lap time in a few moments' time, of course. But on the top, it's Cadillac, Acura, Porsche, BMW, all 4 manufacturers represented in the top 4. And Shane Larson has indeed changed his manufacturer, so he will take the penalty points for that as well. But glad that we've got some BMWs finally in the field at the tail end of the season, because we've been missing them a little bit, to be honest. This is a look at the grid and that great manufacturer split. It's Edwin Onofre who's taken pole by less than a tenth ahead of Brandon Wilson and Shane Larson. Just look at that, great sight to see. Dave Menino and Miguel Rios are sharing row 3. They are 5th and 6th, respectively. 7th place for Timothy Fries-Larson, who's also returning after spending a week off. If those two Larsons could coordinate their weeks off differently, then that would help us out. But anyway, they're both here today. Casey O'Brien is 8th, ahead of Bradley Holly and Jeff Evans rounding out the top 10. Nicholas Schwartz and Nathan Ray next. Ray with a lot of work to do there, second in the championship down at the back. Neil Alexander and Andrew Ellis round out an all parabola, row 7, ahead of Matthew Denis, who rounds out the 15 GTPs who will be starting the race today. Michael Brooks has taken pole in GT3 and he does need points over Tim Feliz. That's a good start for him. Ken Copeland also needs them. Joey Costello is in 4th place. Of course, we'll, try and help Feliz in any way that he can. Miles Brown and Eduardo Aguiar are sharing row 3. Jake Cummings and Tony Costello are next, with Matthew Maturo and Evan Henneman rounding out the top 10. It's Doug Evans and Sean Murphy who are sharing row 6. Ahead of Sean Stecker and Bowie Surin. Only 29 in the field today yet. I wonder whether Suzuka's put a few people off today.
Yeah, it's not exactly a driver's favourite. I think it's fair to say. It's, again, not the easiest to go racing, particularly multi-class event. So maybe it has. Hopefully it doesn't... that won't bear out next week when we get to the season finale. But for the time being, the drivers that have turned up, they are going to get some big points here because they have just turned up by virtue of the point system. They're going to be seeing their points tallies rack up pretty nicely. So that's going to be aim number 1, finishing the race. But it will be difficult. I mean, through these S's where we're seeing Evan Onofre take them absolutely beautifully, it's going to be tricky to go side by side between the GTPs and the GT3s. But with these being high-speed corners, we're going to be seeing quite a big pace difference in this part of the racetrack. It could lead to a couple of little incidents, I think.
And running on board here with Edwin Onofre, I can't help but think what a delightful circuit this must be for a well-set-up prototype, low on fuel, new tyres, probably relatively high downforce. This circuit must be an absolute dream to drive in a car like this.
Yeah, much better than a more clunky, something more like a GT4. Not exactly a GT4, but that's the first thing that came to mind. But these GTPs look great at circuits like this. They may not race beautifully well, but they are great to drive. And coming through Spoon, you can just see just about getting towards the inside curb, riding on the outside curb, and getting it back in for the second apex. And this just looks like a very tidy lap. We've seen many pole laps this season after qualifying, but none of them really look as smooth as this.
And often when it's smooth, it looks a bit slow, but actually it's probably a good sign. More often than not, I mean, we do see some ragged pole laps sometimes, and they go quite well. But smooth laps are often the way to go, and Edwin Onofre certainly managed that here with the GTP pole. You're hesitating there to say GT4, by the way. I would even go as far to say and argue GT3 is hard round here, and we'll have a look at the pole lap now from Michael Brooks as well in the Mustang. Now, this is going to be a really planted car, and it's going to look like a smooth pole lap as well, but I'll just explain why it is so I do believe it is so clunky to drive one of these cars even at this power around this circuit. Let's take the first sector as an example. Turning in, waiting, turning again, wait, then going again, then we're turning in again, and we're waiting again, and now we can go again, and now we're turning, slowing down again, and we're turning, and we're waiting, still waiting, and now we're going again. It's so stop-start, this first sector. It's so understeery, and these cars are not designed for the amount of aerodynamic downforce you really need through that first sector especially.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting in that first sector, especially, but to see the difference in real time between the GTP and the GT3, because as you know, so effortlessly demonstrated, there is quite a long time.
Many words.
It is quite a difficult feat to get these cars around sections like the S's at Suzuka. It isn't the easiest to handle. And the corners last forever. The entirety of the first sector, you're basically going to be rotating the steering wheel to some extent for a good 30, 40 seconds at the start of a lap. It's just non-stop. And especially at corners like this at Spoon, you're still turning. It's over 100 degrees worth, 180 degrees, I should say, worth of rotation. And you don't get a break. The curb in the middle, you're still turning left to follow it. It's such a tricky feat. But this race is going to really pick out some of the best drivers at a crucial time in the season.
Yeah, the little lift as well through 130R, I think I just heard. Or was it the revs dimming as they were turning in, not sure. But it's a difficult corner, not necessarily flat out like it would be in the prototypes at all. Much more difficult circuit to negotiate than it is in GTP, and iRacing is going to throw us out from seeing the end of that, but you get the gist. That was the run up towards the line for Michael Brooks, and the drivers now are going to get themselves onto the grid ready for the pace lap, which is going to start from around the back straight in the old pit lane. Not the old pit lane, but what they call it, the west pit lane, is it, on this circuit? I think so. So we will line up around there, I think, and then get ourselves ready for a rolling start. Oh no, just before Spoon, so just before the west pit lane and the alternative pit lane for the alternative layout, indeed, that turns right just before we turn right for the Casio Triangle at the very end of the lap. And there they are, indeed, getting onto the grid. This slightly smaller field may have one benefit here in the fact there's only 29 of them. Maybe a little bit less traffic. Maybe it'll be more manageable than the potential chaos fest that I bet some drivers will have been fearing at the start of the day.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I cast my mind back to the LMP3 GT4 Challenge event here, and it was near the start of the season, numbers were pretty high, and it was quite chaotic, to say the least. Drivers were all over the road. I think we had a few retirements early on just because of the lapping that was ongoing between big groups of cars. But with a bit of a break, I think we're going to be treated a little bit nicer up here in the booth, at least from the standpoint of there's not going to be too many scary moments that are going to be keeping us awake this evening. But even so, it's going to be tricky because the split is relatively even between the GTPs and the GT3s. Generally, we've seen a lot more GT3s than GTPs throughout the season. But with the more even split, it means that the onus really is going to be on the GTPs to keep with each other in the trains. Otherwise, they might find themselves under pressure from behind, whereas they otherwise maybe wouldn't do earlier on in the season. So they may be a little bit more aggressive than usual, but we're going to have to wait and find out because it should take about 10 minutes or so for the first lapping to occur, I reckon.
The GT3s are miles behind. I was expecting to see them come over the crest there and start just behind these guys, but they're absolutely not. They're miles away. So we will get two completely separate starts, and despite the overcast conditions, by the way, there is no threat of rain here this afternoon. There are the GT3s. They'll be going green just before the Casio Triangle. That'll be their first corner, if you like. Now, though, it's Edwin Onofre who's in control of the field. Edwin taking the first pole position for that Cadillac, that Tech Sport Academy Cadillac of the season, and gets underway off the front in a pretty even start with Pat Pauschat over the line. The green flag waves and Pauschat goes to defend from the Porsche on the inside line. Moving back to the outside line goes Jeff Evans here as he tries to work his way through, and that's by the looks of things, a very good, Brandon Wilson. A very good pass from Brandon Wilson right round the outside, almost seamlessly. Pauschat immediately looks like he's down to 4th place from what I can see here. It looks like, yes, he is. Shane Larson's got through as well.
Yeah, and they're all going to work their way up through the S's as they go into turn 1 in the GT3 side by side. The P2 and the crash as well. Felice, I thought he was round. He's just about kept it going. But they will continue around the opening couple of turns. Someone going off as well, losing it on the exit. I was about to say, I was watching how civil it was through the Casio Triangle, but with Cummings spinning around there, clearly it's not been the easiest of starts back here in the GT3s.
I thought the fact they would be single file out the Casio Triangle would help. It clearly hasn't. Felice has gone down the order, although he does have teammates to help him out, of course, and help him rescue this. And in any case, he's only 5th. It's not a complete disaster yet at all. but it is a bit of a disaster, I'm afraid, for Ken Copeland, who drops down to 9th place. He needs some points today. Starts today 19 behind Feliz, needs to finish ahead of him. There is Feliz, immediately on the back of Miles Brown. As up in front of them goes Eduardo Aguiar in the Corvette. He's rolling onto the road. Oh, he doesn't quite get connected, but goodness me, that was close. Now he needs to get off the racing line, and he does. He was running in a great place, so in 3rd place, but now he drops down. Feliz is promoted, as is almost everybody. Michael Brooks is absolutely laughing. He's not even in these camera shots, he's so far ahead.
And I think Aguiar made a mistake that we all have made at some point on the exit of Degner too, but gutting to do it when you're in P3 at the start of a race, nearly contact into Spoon for P3 as they run their way through, and that's now Miles Brown and Jim Feliz fighting it out. It used to be Aguiar, but he is no longer in that little group, but a great start from a couple of these drivers who have been able to pick their way through, quietly going about their business while other drivers have spun around them.
Remarkable start, really, as the two leaders, by the way, in both classes actually have really good gaps. Edwin Onofre nearly a second, does have a second now over Brandon Wilson. Michael Brooks has 2.5 immediately at the end of lap number 1. Great starts from them. Jeff Evans and Bradley Holly are meanwhile going nose to tail. I'll read you some of Bradley Holly's career PRL stats, by the way, because this is his 501st start in the series tonight, and I'll read you some in a few minutes' time, because they are absolutely remarkable. Evan Henneman, meanwhile, I think is battling with Ken Copeland there. Is that for 6th place? It is indeed. Copeland looks like he's going to prevail in that one. A little bit further down. Oh, it's not been without its incident. A bit further down here. That's Sean Murphy dropping down to 12th position. It's been a very chaotic GT3 start, although I suppose you'd expect it from this circuit.
No, in this circuit, it does throw up some interesting moments, as we're going to see here, down towards turn 1. This is a replay of what we saw at the start in the GT4s, bit of contact, but managing to hold it much better than it seemed from the aerial shot, and that's how we saw the spin. Getting involved in quite a bit of contact there off the start was Jim Feliz. Yes, it was Jim Feliz. It took me a second there, but thanks to our wonderful producer Dustin, got there in the end. But getting towards turn 1 again in these GTPs, I think the lead that we're seeing from the two out in front, Onofre and Brooks, is good for the time being. The onus is now going to be on the likes of Wilson and Casello to close that gap while being pressured in behind.
This was on board with Beck Cummings, who saw that coming, but probably wasn't expecting that sort of contact to do that sort of damage to his race. And he spins around right to the back of the field. What a miserable prospect that is to start your race off with. The leaders in GTP are all pretty much locked together. It's not going to last that much longer, because traffic is going to be upon us sooner than you think. They're already a minute behind the overall lead of the GT3s, at least those at the back are. And so we are probably about 30 seconds away from lappery, indeed maybe a lap or two. This is a big slide up ahead here for Joey Costello. Then Eduardo Aguiar goes off, almost in avoidance, and smashes the wall. That's a really sort of disappointing way to lose a potential podium. I know it's early, but you know, he was running 3rd. It's a really silly way to lose it.
Yeah, but like I said, it's that curb on the outside. We've all got ourselves out there, and we've all found ourselves spinning around, maybe just not in those circumstances, as he looked like he was going to make the corner pretty easily, and then all of a sudden he had a car directly exactly where he wanted to plant his machine, and in the end coming off very badly was Aguiar, but he's still in the race. He didn't hit anything, but you know, we'll see what he can do. He's P14, he's 7 seconds off the pack. Don't rule him out though, because he clearly showed some good pace in qualifying. He could definitely get himself back inside the top 10, maybe getting himself a little bit higher as well. We've seen some good recovery drive. As that's an offer going off.
Oh dear, the leader has gone off. It looks like an unforced error from that camera, but we'll see in a few moments' time whether Brandon Wilson was applying the pressure or not. Through goes Pelchat as well as Shane Larson at the front. In fact, everyone's going through here. Rios, Menino, and that's it. All 5 of them go through. 6th place for Onofre. It is an unforced error. The pressure already getting to Eben Onofre 5 minutes into this one.
Yeah, and it's a gutting way to lose the lead, because just sliding that rear can be easy in these prototype cars, but when you're in the lead, you know, maybe the pressure, he felt the pressure was on. I remember him talking to us in the last couple of weeks how he's really been enjoying this run of podiums, not necessarily expecting them to come to him. maybe the fact that he was leading the race, a little bit of the pressure comes into that, but gutting for him to drop down. Still in P6 though, he's still very much in the train, and this is the view on board with Brandon Wilson as he saw his rival go off, and that is one of the best feelings in sim racing, isn't it, when you make a move, particularly for the lead, without really having to do anything at all.
Well, it's the best feeling if you're evil, but I don't like to see other people go off, Dara. Anyway,
okay,
just 6 minutes or so gone. This group now battling for third place, really. Pat Pochard is either taking it cautiously because he knows what's at stake tonight, or he is struggling with speed here on a longer high fuel run. Let's see as we go on board with the back end of the group. This is Timothy Friese Larson. You're currently riding on board with, and that's Edwin and Arthur just up in front. Oh, have a look. No move this time round. Further behind, Bradley Holly and Jeff Evans exchange places. Jeff Evans also under pressure. Oh my goodness, that was extraordinary. Through the 130R section, they're still absolutely door to door. There's Bradley Holly. It was Nathan Ray trying to get in amongst it between the two of them. He's chatting away. Can't imagine it's too cheerful between those at the moment. Evans and Ray going absolutely side by side as Brandon Wilson hangs on to the lead for another lap.
He does, and we'll have to see if Shane Larson can keep applying the pressure. Larson, of course, a driver who, despite not being here on a couple of occasions so far this season, has really shown some incredible pace. 3 wins, same as Pat Belshad, who leads the championship, albeit Shane Larson is down in 14th in the championship by virtue of basically missing a couple of races. So it's been unfortunate for him so far this season, but he could lead the championship in wins and still be outside the top 10 of the championship if he can get through on Brandon Wilson and pull away here. You can't rule out Pat Belshad though in P3. Miguel Rios, the man with the monster car. You can see the little eyes on the car when he rolls.
Oh no! Neil Evans! Neil Evans, that's not even a person. Neil Alexander has gone straight on at Degner 2. And that was quite a big hit. He's gone back to the pit lane, I'm afraid. That was not... Well, I would suggest that might not be the last time we see that kind of thing tonight, because it's a very, as you said earlier about Degner 2 on the exit, that one on the entry is very easy to do as well.
Absolutely. Let's see it, though, because it was I think it looked worse than the camera angle we were looking at, mainly because we weren't expecting it. But yeah, just going wide off the road, pretty much hitting at a 90-degree angle to the tyre barrier there isn't going to do your front end any kind of good. Yeah, you can just see bouncing across the road. Lucky there was no one really following behind, actually, because he would have bounced straight into oncoming traffic, and if there was anybody there's no way they could have got out of the way. I think that was someone going wide at the Casio Triangle as well, going off so far.
Andrew Ellis, yeah, it was, making that mistake, and he'll be passed by Nathan Ray, among others, who move on up now. There goes Ray. He's alongside on the way in towards turn number 1. Speaking of mistakes, that is one of them. That's how Ray is back here. I did wonder, actually, but that's how he lost the place. He's just regained it. He's back into 12th place, but as things stand, he's still 9 places behind Pat Pochard. The lead in the GTP Championship could go over 40 points at the end of tonight if things stay as they are. That's what happened to the Cadillac straight across the road for Andrew Ellis, and that will get you a slowdown. That will lose you a place or two.
And of course, if Ewan O'Leary was in that train, then he would have been distraught to see those cars go off the road. But these guys trying to make their way through at the hairpin, getting tricky to go around the outside. But this is where we're seeing the groups of cars meet each other. This is where the big trains are going to be finding themselves going side by side in places on the circuit they may not want to be going. This is Joey Costello. He's got a little bit of time. He's got Miles Brown, Jim Felice and Ken Copeland behind him. But on the way are some GTPs, and they're not going to be hanging around.
Oh, side by side, meanwhile, for 4th, Dave Menino, back past, I should say, not Pat Pochard, Miguel Rios for 4th place. And here comes Rios again. Edwin and Opera sort of caught behind these two, not knowing where to go. And these two are going to have to figure that out as well very shortly because of the McLaren in front of them. Round the outside goes Menino. He holds on to 4th, diving down the left of one and the right of the other. This is GT3 traffic for the very first time. Just 10 minutes into this race, this will happen another 4 occasions at least, I would say, in this race. It's going to be very busy indeed, but it has allowed Menino to hold on to the place. Andrew Ellis gets the Casio Triangle wrong again.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not been an easy place so far in this race. A lot of prototypes making mistakes down there, not necessarily the GT3s just yet. This is where we're going to see side-by-side through the S's, around the outside at turn 3. That's brave. Inside at 4, not going to be happening. Back around the outside, dive it down the inside. That'd be a very good move. And Brandon Wilson can slot his way through. Was that Pat Pelshot? I think it was Pelshot, actually, making his way through. You can see how much time he's lost to the drivers in front of him. But Dave Menino's in a similar position as he's looking to get down the inside at Degner 1. Again, a brave place to make a move, but these guys now fighting side by side.
Nicely through, Edwin Onofre on Miguel Rios. And, careful into Degner 2. They all filter through. More flashing of the light from Miguel Rios just up ahead as Onofre gets through. And look at the efficiency through traffic there from Pat Pelshot. You can call it luck or what you want, but it is down to the driver as well. Pat Pelshot has gained time on Shane Larson, who's lost out to Brandon Wilson, but more importantly, Pelshot has distanced those behind him, those who previously he was the cork in the bottle with earlier on. But Pelshot now battling for second place, though he is a second off. This has happened to Shane Larson as well. This might be where all the smoke's come from. He did have a half spin, so that's where some of the gap gain has come from as well. Shane Larson nearly going around at Degner 2.
Yeah, and I think Pat Pelshot, you mentioned his efficiency through traffic. I think in the end it was more Shane Larson's difficulties around Degner too, because Pelshot did struggle. We saw him going side by side through the S's, not something that Shane Larson had to do, and it meant that Pelshot lost a heap of time, but he gained it all back as the mistake came from Larson. So gutting for the 117 after being able to do a very good job and getting a little bit lucky with where he was able to meet the traffic. But down towards turn 1 again, we'll see the GTPs have a lot of pace against the GT3s as they go down the main straight. Problem arises when you pinch your way through turn 1, and the track really does pinch up. I mean, I saw a video, I'm sure some of you have as well, of a tyre bouncing down towards turn 1, and then showing the camber of the circuit bouncing all the way through turn 1 and into turn 2. So it really does pinch up. There is really one racing line, and if you find yourself going side by side between classes, it's going to be trouble.
On board with Timothy Fries-Larson here for 6th place. It's Miguel Rios in the Cadillac just up ahead of us here. So we're pretty much clear of traffic. I think they've even got past Michael Brooks now, these GTPs. So they are in the clear for another few laps again, and the raw pace of these drivers can start to show all over again. We're just under a quarter of an hour of the way through here, and the GT3 battles haven't been split apart really by the GTPs coming through. Have a look at this for 2nd place. Joey Costello leading the line with Miles Brown, Jim Feliz and Ken Copeland all right in behind. Ken Copeland and Jim Feliz, of course, 19 points apart in the battle for the championship going into this race.
Yeah, I think this could get a little bit interesting between these two as they're on their way towards Spoon. Championship battles at this stage of the season become really important. You kind of almost forget about everybody else in the race. You're racing your rival. So the likes of Miles Brown, who isn't necessarily right at the sharp end of the championship, back down in 21st. Yes, he's in P3, but Felice and Copeland are going to be fighting with each other. Their focus is on each other. And if Miles Brown starts to get away, yeah, they may be losing points in general, but I think for Copeland, mission number 1 is getting past Felice and keeping Felice behind. It doesn't matter if he loses some time by doing so. That's going to have to be his number 1 mission.
Through the chicane they go. Copeland has got a good line there, and he might have a run as well, though Felice wasn't bad either. He'll be chucking under the rear wing of Miles Brown, who again, like he was on Tuesday, without his teammate Carl Robertson, rating alone in the 222, as Copeland has a look. Probably more to put off Felice than it is to make an actual overtake, but he's just letting him know that he's there, because as I say, does need to gain some points today. Does Copeland, that is for sure. He can't lose any, although mathematically it would be possible. It would be unlikely. In towards the sweepers they go. Felice really close to the back of Miles Brown, and he'll be starting to feel the urgency now of making this overtake on the Corvette. He'll be feeling like he's being held up by Miles Brown, and if he doesn't get through, then Ken Copeland might well do it for him.
Yeah, and Jim Felice is going to have to be keeping a watchful eye, because Ken Copeland is going to be making himself as big in the mirrors as he can. There'll be more in the mirrors there as he jumps out of line, not intentionally, through Dunlop, and they'll get into the Deckness with Copeland a little bit further back than he was about 90 seconds ago. They're going to run their way back up towards the hairpin. And the hairpin, really one of the good overtaking points on the racetrack. You've got to be close enough to make a lunge, and you can just see drivers that are, 4 or 5 tenths back and just too far back. If that gap is 2 to 3 tenths, I think we'll see a few cents.
Absolutely, that's the total points on the right-hand side. You've got to remember to take 43 away from Feliz and 38, excuse me, away from Henneman, which does make it a bit closer than that. So what would that mean? Feliz is on 43, 45, that'd be 16 ahead of Brooks, and 21 ahead of Copeland. There you go. So it's still very much in his hands, but it would be a close championship finale, that's for sure. As things stand, as we go back to the second group, Evan Henneman is leading this one in the McLaren, just ahead of Matthew Mottoro and Jake Cummings, who has recovered. Now, I can't believe that. Cummings is in 9th place already. That's a remarkable recovery if that is him, because don't forget he spun on the opening lap of this race. In fact, the opening corner of this race, he spun round and went back to last, but he's already inside the top 10 and knocking at the door of 7th place.
Yeah, I think, he lost time there, but he didn't lose too much time in the grand scheme of things. He was off the back of the train, but I think more impressive is the fact that he's been able to make his way through as Copeland and Feliz, they are fighting as they get through turn 1. Feliz on the outside will have the inside line for the start of the S's, but can Copeland get his way around the outside enough to claim the corner? Yes, he can. And Ken Copeland taking advantage down at turn 1, and an incredibly important move for the championship. Let's see if he can hold it for now.
Very close between the two. They were absolutely rubbing through turn 1 there. Copeland just ahead of Feliz now. Let's have another look at it in towards turn number 1 as you monitor the bottom right of your screen, live pictures. Copeland down the inside. Tight line initially, but does wash out here. Tries to push Feliz, but doesn't push him any more than is reasonable. And with the outside line and his nose ahead into 3 and 4, he does get through. How decisive is that going to be, or will Feliz respond again in the next few moments?
Feliz is sitting right on the tail of Ken Copeland, isn't he? Right as they run their way through the hairpin. They'll get through 200R as we see more fighting in towards the hairpin. This is Jake Cummings trying to make more ground, and he is making more ground. Up to P8 now is Cummings, doing a remarkable job now to keep his car rolling through the field. He's in no way in title contention, but he wouldn't mind a good result here. Evan Henneman is his next target, and you'd be a brave man to bet against Jake Cummings getting through in the pretty near future.
I think so. On board we go with Mottoro here. He's going to have a great view of it. Might even happen on the way towards the Casio Triangle, to be honest. He's right up in behind the rear end of the McLaren. Here is Cummings in the Corvette. Now, is he close enough for a move here? A little bit of a lift off into 130R, of course. He got the power on the exit here and the ambition to go down the inside. No, he stays behind, but look at how close he is through the curves now. He is going to be getting an exit from here and surely racing through on the way towards turn number 1. Down the hill they go at the Casio Triangle, right in the slipstream. He's almost dying to go through already here and look down the inside already. Tucks right underneath the rear end of the McLaren. Well, he's not quite got the power. Here he goes. He's going to have to do a lot of it on the brakes, and there he goes. Later on the brakes, maybe too late. On the AstroTurf, saves it and does get to 7th place. This is a remarkable recovery from Jake Cummings, who is now in the top half of the field again.
He's got 3 seconds now to catch up to Tony Costello, who's a little bit isolated in P6. Then you get to the train for P2 behind Joey Costello. So the Costellos are going to be the target now for Jake Cummings in P7. We're nearly a third of the way through this race. It almost feels like we've gone a little bit further because of the amount of action that we've seen so far, the ups and the downs. But for the likes of Menino, Edwin Onofre particularly, who has had that mistake, there's a very long way to go to try and rectify lost time. And for Edwin Onofre, mission number 1 is to get through on Dave Menino. The problem is Menino's making that GTP as wide as can be, particularly as they run their way through the S's. There's no way we're going to be seeing GTPs making moves through these S's unless we see a big mistake from someone, as we nearly see one from Menino.
Goodness me. It's not often you see these cars saved from that kind of slide. That was very impressive indeed from Dave Menino to hang on to that car ahead of Edwin Onofre there. Miguel Rios and Timothy Fries-Larsen are catching from behind as well. You can see the multiple pairings there. There's Pelchat and Larsen, I should say. Menino Onofre, then Rios and Larsen. So 3 groups of 2 going through your shot there, through the hairpin. But Menino, I think, is about to be head of a quartet if he's not too careful soon. I don't mean a good kind. It's going to make you nod your head. He'll be shaking his head very shortly because he'll be overtaken if he's not careful. That was wide from him. Edward Onofre gets very close indeed out of Spoon Curve. This surely is a golden opportunity now in towards 130 off for Edward Onofre. He's got the speed on the exit. He's not quite going to do it into the fast left-hander, but maybe the chicane. If he just gets a bit of a slingshot here, taking account for the dirty air. Now he can go. Goes to the outside line. He goes on late on the brakes this time. Oh, he slides and he spins. Oh dear, in a very similar way to how he lost the lead. He loses his chance at 4th place.
Yeah, almost identical to what we saw him do down at the Castillo Triangle to lose the lead. It's gutting for him. Lightning has struck twice for him. Let's see it on the offboard. You can see him, just turning into the corner, the rear locking a little bit as he did so, and the car not happy with how he was turning in, and through goes the Miguel Rios, Timothy Friis-Larsen, and they're now up to P5 and 6, but Dave Menino, he's been let off the hook a bit there. Oh my word!
Oh, careful. Dear, oh dear. That was all very close for 5th place as we go into traffic again, as you may have noticed. Joey Costello has gone off, by the way, I think, or at least he's lost a couple of places because he was second. Ed Miles Brown and Copeland and Feliz. This is what happened in towards turn number 1, and he's just going a bit too quickly. He saves it from a full spin at least, and good avoidance from Copeland, but that does put Joey Costello now just ahead of Tony Costello actually in 5th and 6th.
They will continue on, but not the best of runs for the Costellos, obviously, with they were 2nd and 6th. I think Joey dropping down there, meaning he's now in the little bit more in a position of a little bit more risk, but it all means that Jake Cummings is getting ever closer as Timothy Friis-Larsen nearly pushing Miguel Rios through Spoon Curve, which is not a corner you want to be aided through. Let's see how this settles itself out as they come towards 130R. Larsen right on the tail. Edwin Onofre sneaking his way behind, ready to pounce if anything goes wrong between these two. A little bit of contact as they make their way through 130R, and Onofre has the run. He'll go to the inside. They can't go 3 wide into his, surely.
And they don't, thankfully, but Larsen does get round the outside. Careful, leave the space or you get spun round. Oh, they get all out of shape now, and they'll go 3 wide with for GT3, my goodness. Here goes Edwin Onofre. He's surely got a chance to make this 3 wide, and it is a bit wider here. He could have a chance, but he's too far back. Larsen's got the straight line speed by the looks of things, and that was very early on the break from Miguel Rios, who nearly gives up 6th as well. He's on the inside line, though. Larsen's gone wide. He's still, right up the tailpipes in the Porsche, but no. Miguel Rios can't get the place back. Timothy Friis-Larsen is up to 5th from 7th just a couple of laps ago.
How good is it to see these 3 scrapping away in the manner that they are as they work their way up through Dunlop. We're seeing the first pitters as well in the GTP. Schwartz, Ray and Mathieu Denise have all come into the box as we now see this trio try to negotiate into Degner. Not the best of fronts with everyone on offer as they run into Degner too, but up in front they're trying to get through on the GT3. Lights are flashing clearly. Not too much happiness there as outside goes Miguel Rios into the hairpin. You don't see many moves made there, and we're not going to see one this time around.
Nope, not unless your name's Kobayashi, if you remember that from even he did do that to be fair, anyway. I don't know if Dario was even born then when he was doing this thing, but anyway, that's besides the point. 36 minutes to go here at Suzuka. Oh, whoa, what's he thinking there? The McLaren was always going to be taking the apex. Timothy Friis-Larsen literally just ran over him.
Yeah, I don't really know how that's even been allowed to happen between these 3, but Friis-Larsen now again under pressure outside of Miguel Rios into 130R. A bit of a roles reversal from this time last lap. Let's see, is there any send on at the Castillo Triangle? No is the simple answer. They've got a little bit more traffic upcoming as we now see Edwin Onofre fighting with Casey O'Brien, who's appeared from the ether to be in the battle for P6 through the final turn.
This is remarkable for Edwin Onofre, and not in a good way, I'm afraid. 7th place, defending all of a sudden from the lead, of course, earlier on. In the first 5 minutes, he was leading well, but a half spin, I should say, at the Castillo Triangle dropped him down, and that's just when the issues started to go wrong. Didn't end there for him, unfortunately, as Shane Larson and Pat Pelchak continue to battle for 2nd place. That is past Michael Brooks, by the way, who we've not seen all day. He is 8.5 seconds in the lead. Further behind him, Sean Murphy's got off the road into Spoon. He saves it-ish. Oh, that was quite a long crash, and he eventually saves it from being one. He gets back on the road, but he is down in 11th place at the moment.
Yeah, incredible save through spoon curve, especially when the you know how slippery it is on the outside of that corner and the amount of rotation you have to put in on the tarmac, let alone off the circuit. It's been incredible to see him not losing the rear end in a way that sees him facing the wrong way. But we'll have to see if Bruce Larson and Rioch can negotiate it with a little bit more ease as they run there now. Rioch has been a driver that's lurked all season long. He's not necessarily had those headline results that we've seen other drivers have. Only 2 top 5s all season long, but he's been so consistently there, as we see. Oh, a bit of a battle off the road. This is Ken Copeland getting ahead of Miles Brown.
We've got trouble here. There was maybe contact from Copeland to the back of Brown. Brown certainly thinks so, because for the second half of Spoon, he gave him a racing driver's version of a slap in the face there. A complete run into the back of him. Didn't send the Mercedes off. But this is an important lap for these two, because Jim Felice is coming on the previous one. So they clearly need to work together almost, but there's absolutely no signs of that at the moment. Round the outside goes Jeff Evans. He's not helping either, although he's just doing his thing in GTP. Does Copeland come in to cover him off? No. I suppose since you've lost so much time on this lap, you've got to do some more to try and cover off Jim Felice, but it's a danger having your championship rival out the way as we have a look at this one. Oh no, he lost it on his own there, Brown, and I don't think he was retaliating so much as Copeland just sort of parked himself in front of the Corvette there.
Yeah, just went as wide as he could through the second part of Spoon, knew he wasn't going to get a very good run, and just tried to deny Miles Brown a good slingshot off the corner, and it's meant that Ken Copeland is now up to second, which is exactly where he needs to be, especially with Jim Felice off strategy with Copeland for the time being. We'll have to find out after Copeland comes into the box where those two shake out in the order, but you won't imagine it's going to be terribly far away from each other. But we are approaching half distance. I think it's interesting to see so many pit stops before half distance, because we've generally seen a lot of drivers take them very late on in the race so far this season.
I think people are trying to avoid traffic where they can. And so, but if you want to do that, you have to do it before the halfway mark. But actually, everyone's so spread out now, I don't think you'll be able to avoid traffic very well. I think some have tried. As we have a look at Strecker here. This is Sean Strecker, who's now 10th. As a result of this, that's Barry Sewing going through on the inside. Another slide through Spoon Curve, which is becoming quite difficult for these GT3s, as Jake Cummings is up to 4th place. He has done a Kobayashi up the inside of the hairpin there, up to 4th place, ahead of Tony Costello. What a recovery drive from Jake Cummings.
Now he's got space to drive into. He's got 8 seconds to Miles Brown as he will continue his charge. Let's see, gets to the inside. Beautifully done, Camus will be proud. And he makes his way through the hairpin. I think Miles Brown could, Tony Costello could somewhat see it coming. As we see through in towards turn one, everyone on Offra is fighting with Miguel Rios. Shane Larson's had a bit of an issue as well, and he's been overtaken by Pat Belchat. And all of a sudden, the front of the GTPs have woken up into the opening sector.
Everyone on Offra can't get through. Shane Larson spun at the second Degner earlier, half spun. Feels like he's done it again here. He has. Very similar incident in towards the opening corner, and Pat Belchat picks up the pieces, as he so often has done. He's far from the quickest driver around this circuit tonight, Pat Belchat, but he's certainly getting the most out of his own ability, and he is in second place and closing on Brandon Wilson as well. 2.5 seconds the gap between those two just at the moment. This is another example as to why Pat Belchat is leading this championship and leading it so handsomely as well.
Yeah, and let's see if he can try and use this clean air to get up towards Brandon Wilson, because he's been cooped up a little bit behind Shane Larson. Can he use this to his advantage? Through Spoon we go. These, I mean, we've not necessarily had the same three in a battle for 6th, but there's been a battle over 6th position for quite some time now. And now P6 is at the front of the train. Rios is now defending from an Offra and KC O'Brien. It's been just a bit of an up and down race for all, well, particularly for Rios and for Onofra, but they just can't get some alone time on the circuit. They are consistently fighting, and they probably just want to have a nice bit of clean air to just get some lap times in.
Absolutely. 30 minutes to go now as Shane Larson does come in. Probably the best idea is cut his losses now, cool his tyres a little bit, and then get back out there again, having done a bit of an undercut on Belchat and Wilson, even if it does mean overtaking a few more GT3s than you otherwise might have to. This is the group for 5th place now then, instead of 6th, with Miguel Rios, Edwin Onofra and Casey O'Brien making their way in towards turn 1. It's a very spread apart field as a result of the pit stops so far. We have now seen 6 out of 14 stop in GTP, and we have seen 5 out of 10 stop in GT3, but the difference is some of those are top contenders. In fact, both classes have some of the top contenders, both having pitted so far. And look at that. If you try to pit to avoid traffic, I mean, forget about it, because you're going to end up in somewhere, no matter where you are.
You are. I mean, for the time being, there's a very lonely Jeff Evans at the moment, who's just circulating the circuit 10 seconds away from anybody. But apart from that, everyone is pretty close to somebody else on the circuit. This is the blend out of the pit lane for Bradley Holly. The man with the T-Cam will get out just about in 11th. Nicholas Schwartz is looking to try and make a move with those warmer tyres on that GTP car, but the yellow wheel rims are not going to be anywhere further forward.
Graphics will be back in a couple of moments' time, by the way. And well, while they are, I'll give you my Bradley Holly facts, if you like, for those at home. I know Darrow will already know them, probably. As Schwartz makes his way round the outside here, Bradley Holly rather letting him go there, I feel, up the hill. Bradley Holly's making his 501st start tonight after hitting number 500, the big 500 last night in the Truck Series. He's been on pole 75 times. He's won 125 times. He's been in the top 5 346 times. He's been in the top 10 417 times. 3 of those records I just read out are the most of all time. He's only a few weeks away, and at the early part of next season, if he does reappear, I'd imagine he will have the most race starts of anybody as well. He's only 6 behind the most poles, and if he were to achieve that, then he would have the most in all of the records. It's quite a remarkable PRL career that he has had. As we have a look now at the leading pit stops here in GTP. Can Brandon Wilson get out ahead of everybody? No! Oh, Pat Pelchat! Great stop from the Acura, and Pat Pelchat once again getting the most out of his day by getting into the lead ahead of Brandon Wilson.
And he's not had to make any moves, has he? He's just been able to pick off one driver for going wide at turn 1 and pick off another by having a quicker stop in the pit lane. Incredible stuff from Pat Pelchat. He was bobbing up and down, as they all do in the pit lane, as if they're on a fairground ride, but he was able to do it quickest. Maybe it's a lack of taking another couple of tyres. I wouldn't think he's put less fuel in the car, so there must be a reason that Pat Pelchat has had a slightly shorter stop. But whatever it is, he's now in the lead. He's got the initiative to try and go forward and attack this lead that he's got, but Brandon Wilson's going to see Pat Pelchat right in front of him and be challenging him all the way to the end.
This is quite remarkable from Pat Pelchat. Not made a single overtake for position all day, but he is in the lead of the race because of strategy and because of just driving sensibly and quickly as well, of course, in this race. That is why he's on his way to a title, and maybe even his 4th race win of the season. That would finally put him up ahead of the rest, by the way. Of course, Shane Larson also has 3, but Pat Pelchat would just move ahead on to 4 if indeed he is able to take this victory here. Edwin Onofre comes into pit lane. I actually thought last lap was their limit in terms of fuel, but it just turns out lots of them wanted to do it last time round. Casey O'Brien can continue on for one more. I wonder what this battle's going to be like now between Pelchat and Wilson, because it may well be one of those where these two are stuck together for some time.
Yeah, and as Neil Alexander gets out of the way very nicely for these two, they will see Edwin Onofre in the pit lane, and they will inherit P2 and P3, you'd expect, unless Edwin Onofre does some voodoo magic in the pit lane, but he's not able to do that. He will drop down the order. But for Pat Pelchat, he's used to this position, isn't he? I mean, he's only won 3 of the first 7 races this season. He dominated last season in the GTP category when this series was back on a Monday night in a slightly shorter 45-minute race. But he's just been able to carry that momentum and speed over. I mean, his name is littered on the GTP records sheet. I mean, he's won at pretty much half the circuits we've been to in these machines. We've not been here at Suzuka in GTPs. He's looking like he might add his name to that column as well. I mean, he just is the standard, and everyone has to try and catch him, no matter how tough that does seem.
It seems very tough right now. As I mentioned, it's not possible for him to clinch the title tonight, but he can put it into a point of where he just needs to finish next week, and he will be crowned champion. But he won't just be aiming for that in Road America. He'll be aiming for the win there as well, I am sure. This is the battle a bit further down for Timothy Fries-Larsen, trying to get past a driver or two in towards Mathieu Denis on this occasion in 13th place. Larsen through Degner 2. I'm not sure how it's lost so much time. Has someone hit the pit wall here? This is Sean Stecker in the Rogue Racing Ferrari. I think he's catapulted himself into the dividing wall there between the pit lane and indeed the racetrack as well. That's a bit of a shame.
Has he stepped it into the pit lane wall? Yes, he has, which is a shame. It looked like he tried to go back out onto the circuit, and then he reverses, and then he gets into the pit lane. But that is not what you want to be seeing, and a very innocuous moment as well. For him to end up losing the car. I wanted to quickly mention, actually, while I was looking at this GTP record sheet, a couple of the other names that cropped up quite often were Boris Sanchez-Lavando, there were Michael Diaz, and they were Aiden Young, which are all of the title contenders, all but one of the title contenders from the LMP3 and GT4 series on a Monday night. So clearly there's a bit of synergy there. Their finale is on Monday. They have almost left Pat Pelchat to his devices to absolutely dominate this season. But it'll be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see if the top drivers in sports car racing from the PRL all met in the same category.
Well, you say left Pat Pelchat to run away with it. That's not the indication I've got from watching this season, to be honest with you, because Shane Larson has beaten him 3 weeks in a row between rounds 3, 4 and 5. He's got 50 penalty points, which he's only adding to here because he probably doesn't care about the championship anymore, by moving to the BMW. That gets you penalty points in the PRL, for those that don't know. So he's 109 behind, but even take those 50 away, he's 59 behind. That would catapult him to 4th. And if he was at one of the races that he unfortunately couldn't start, either last week or the first week, then he'd be a lot nearer to Pelchat. I think this season has been a lot different to what the record sheets and the results sheets are going to tell us in seasons gone past. We're going to look back at this season and the results say, oh, Pat Pelchat won by miles again. I don't think that's true, really, when you sort of live the reality of it, as we have done in the last 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, but at the same time, I think it could also be fair to say that Pelchat's had a lot of bad luck this season. I think back to Zolder, he got caught up in some incidents off the start. That left Shane Larson his devices, not to take anything away. But I do think, I mean, Pat Pelchat has 4 poles, the next best has 1. So he has been the standard in terms of pace. Yes, you're absolutely right. He hasn't necessarily been dominating every single race, but I definitely think he's been the driver that everyone's looked to catch. And even Shane Larson would have been pleased to have beaten Pelchat rather than necessarily beating anybody else. Maybe Timothy Freese Larson, who he beat to second a couple of times. So he's definitely been the standard. But I think my point was more it'd be interesting just to see all of the drivers who performed at an exceptionally high level as Jim Felice gets down the inside, but not enough, on Bowie Suad. It'd be interesting to see how they'd all race together and just to see if Pelchat would be able to rack up as many poles as he currently does.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Pelchat has quite dominated, quite as maybe some would have thought at the start. But anyway, that's for history to decide, I suppose. 21 minutes to go here in this race. Timothy Freese Larson's had a very slow stop, I'm going to guess, because I don't know, but I'm going to guess because he's down in 12th behind Andrew Ellis now, and he was battling for top 5 positions earlier on, so these should be easy overtakes for him, but the fact he's having to make them is not a good sign, as meanwhile the GT3s are making their all-important final pit stop of the day, their only pit stop of the day indeed. Michael Brooks is going to be miles ahead of everyone, forget about it, the race win seems to be going his way, but Ken Copeland and Jim Felice are about to have a race off pit lane here, because Felice has already made his pit stop. Is he going to roar past on the way down the straight? It certainly is. Here he comes in the McLaren, down on the outside line. He's going to go through into second place for Jim Felice. This is exactly what he needs for his championship. Ken Copeland has to use these final 20 minutes to get up to the back of him and pass him again before the end.
And vindicated for the strategy options that he took earlier on in the race, because now he's in great position to try and extend that margin to Ken Copeland with only one more round for points to be picked up. But still 20 minutes to go in this race, still a long time for moves to be made as Miguel Rios just about sneaks his way around the outside at a bit of a tricky point on the circuit of one of our GT3s, but he will try and continue his mission to get through on Nathan Ray, who himself has had a good little stint in the race to get himself up into P7.
22 seconds, still the lead overall, by the way, for Casey O'Brien, which is double the lead that Michael Brooks enjoys, although that's the more legitimate one because of pit stops. Miguel Rios flashes the lights there at the SRT Ferrari in towards the hairpin. Nathan Ray works his way through and might work his way to getting away as well here. He's 7th currently. Once again, racing better than he qualifies, as he has done so often. He's finished in the top 5 on 5 occasions in the 7 races we've had so far. I'm not sure this is going to be another one to add to that list. However, he has once again improved his position from the start. 5 positions gained today. Not even in the top 10 in qualifying, but racing his way in, as Rios is going to get a real gain here on the way down the straight. Weaving around. We're going to pass Ken Copeland now. They'll both get him just before 130 off. They'll split the battle for second in GT3, and Ken Copeland will be sent off just a little bit, sent wide anyway, into the corner. Jim Felice will be sent on a tight line, and so Copeland will just close in that little bit.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a bit of a game of cat and mouse for the rest of this race between Felice and Copeland, as they, I mean, they've been playing cat and mouse in the championship. It's almost a microcosm of that in the final 20 minutes or so in this race. That was just emerging from the pit lane, Casey O'Brien, who went out that much longer than everybody else. And this is Nathan Ray and Rios now fighting in behind him. Rios heavily jumped by Casey O'Brien. Of course, they were fighting over P6 not too long ago. That battle being blown wide open. And the drivers who were fighting for P4 are all now scattered across the circuit.
Yeah, indeed. The GTPs are mostly on their own now, other than a few battles further down outside the top 5. Same story a little bit in GT3. Oh, off the road for Jake Cummings, just in front of Jeff Evans and Timothy Vries Larson there, fighting for 10th place. That's Larson up to the top 10 again. But what was Jake Cummings doing out there? He's still 6th in the race, which is a great recovery from last, which is where he was at the end of lap 1, at the end of turn 1. However, this is what happened. Evans tentatively down the inside, then hit him, and Jake Cummings went off the road.
Ooh, and Cummings nearly hit him back as they emerged back onto the circuit. All of that was good news for Timothy Vries Larson running his way through, as he's now up into P10. Jeff Evans not having the best of runs there, getting a little bit of a mix-up. But it's the kind of incident that I'm surprised we've not seen more of, quite frankly, through the S's between the classes, getting onto the curb, almost turning in as if he was following GT3 into the corner, which, as we know, it is not going to happen because of the pace difference. So maybe just a bit of a slip of the mind there.
Misjudgment, certainly, through the sweepers. As we run on board now with Miguel Rios. Here in towards turn number 1, just behind Nathan Ray, who is catching Casey O'Brien. Braking very early there, though. I don't know what that was all about, but he's nearly got rear-ended there by Rios, who now is right at the back of him into the S's, although is that a great place to be? A lot of dirty air back here. And these cars do produce a lot of aerodynamic downforce that does have to be paid for by someone, and it is indeed the driver behind them who pays the price. They can stay relatively close, but you can see the amount of turning lot you have to put in through these corners where you wouldn't ordinarily. So can they close in on Casey O'Brien here and get to 6th place maybe? It would be a great effort from Nathan Ray if he could do that, and there is only just over a quarter of an hour to do it as well.
And you need that extra little bit of commitment. No! That's a little bit too much commitment in towards the hairpin, off the road, and Miguel Rios, he's got it all wrong. And, I was talking about commitment. I don't know if I've somehow jinxed that, but he has gone into the corner far too hot, and that is not going to be a very happy conversation happening after the race.
And he needs to be careful going that quickly, Nathan Ray, because he's got no rear wing. This is just going to look incredibly rude, I think, from Rios. There you go. Almost like he was trying to do that. He obviously wasn't, but perfectly planted. And you don't often find yourself hitting the wall on the exit of the hairpin there, by the way, because it is so far away, the wall, from where you would actually be, and you're normally going so slowly, but Rios hit Ray at such high speed that he ploughed off the road and actually found the wall at the exit of the circuit. Well, Ray will probably take this as a drop week in that case. He's 38 points currently taking as his drop week, although on that day he finished quite far down as well. Finished 13th that day, so maybe it won't be. Maybe he'll just lose a lot of points, but even if he does lose a lot, then he'll still be in contention next week, although he would require Pat Pelchat to DNF. As we have a look back at Jake Cummings and Tony Costello, they're fighting for 6th place. It's not kicking off for 2nd yet in GT3, by the way, between Jim Felice and Ken Copeland.
It's not. Well, not for the time being, anyway. I mean, Copeland is still stalking his way through at the moment. The gap isn't huge, as we do see. Emerging from the pit lane, Miguel Rios after the collision that we saw. This is the battle between Cummings and Costello down in towards the Casio Triangle. Not much happening there. And I have to say, I know we keep mentioning the drop rounds. I'll be looking forward to next week when all the points are going to count and we don't have to consider any kind of drop rounds. We can just add up rather than trying to work out what could be taken away and what could be added up. And it's going to be a lot nicer for us up here in the booth and hopefully for you guys at home as well. But inside line, Ken Copeland, he might go for it. That's not Ken Copeland, that's Jake Cummings and Tony Costello. I was getting ahead of myself there, Ian.
Yes, Justin was getting ahead of himself as well, just now goading people into doing it. And the last time he did that, I know people was at home can't hear him. Last time he did that, Miguel Rios smashed into the back of Nathan Ray. So hopefully we don't have any more of that in the next few moments. So that's 14 minutes of this race tonight. That's the view back from Jake Cummings here. Costello with a much better line. Oh, he's got a bit of understeer though. Needed to grab the apex there, probably at the left-hander, but didn't quite. He's got to run, but where are you going to go with it here? Sector 1 would be a very difficult place to go for it, and thankfully he's not listening to the on-screen graphics because that would have been pretty bad for everybody, the result of that crash, I would imagine. So he will take the sensible approach and he'll stick behind just for the moment, although he does have a look at the hairpin.
He had a look, but that was all. I mean, it was just a bit of a peek in the window, nothing really too outrageous, but I don't think he would have saw the incident that we saw before, but he avoided it nonetheless. They'll run their way up towards Spoon, and you're not going to make a send at Spoon, not at all, unless you really, really are desperate to make a move. He nearly went for it into the first part of the chicane, maybe just trying to get big in the mirrors. But Jake Cummings, who spent so long in this race attacking, now has to find himself defending, which is a much different situation. And this time, this is Felice and Copeland fighting it out.
Oh. We don't know where to look. Look at this. Look at the inside from... Oh, my goodness, that would have been bad. Costello there looking at the inside of Jake Cummings. They've slowed each other down massively. And so they're separated for the time being. Here comes Copeland on the outside line. This would be quite spectacular, but he needs it. Oh, he's braking late on the outside line. The Mercedes is given the room by Jim Felice, who knows he just doesn't need to crash right now. Round the outside for Ken Copeland, taking advantage of that. He looks like he's done it. Oh, it's still going to be side by side. Felice can't quite do it though. He's on a tight line for turn 4, and Copeland gets it. He's up to second place, and he will be very pleased indeed with that, with just 12 minutes to go.
And what an incredible move it was from Ken Copeland to tiptoe his way around the outside, dancing with as much throttle as he dared, with Jim Felice still down his inside. That's an incredible overtake from Copeland, and worthy to close up any championship as we go into the final week. He needed it so badly, and he's just about getting what he needs. An incredible move through the opening turn. That is Nathan Ray with no rear wing, and the effects of it seemingly at Spoon.
What is he doing driving with that? Is my only question. He is struggling. He's 12th, but struggling, I would say. As we go back to Jake Cummings and Tony Costello, who finally made up after their altercation last time round. It wasn't too bad between them, but Costello was on an extremely tight line before 130R that needed some rectifying there and make his way further to the back of him again. So that battle will continue on, as will the one for second. As things stand, by the way, I believe Michael Brooks is gaining 7 over Felice. That would put him 17 behind going into the next round, as it will with Ken Copeland, because he's gaining 2. So both of them will be 17 behind, necessitating for Jim Felice that he needs to finish in 11th or better. I think he needs, or top 10, sorry. He needs a top 10 in the last race to win the title. So he'll feel comfortable with that, I think, Felice. However, you don't want your last round to be the round where it finally falls apart as Costello gets to the back of Jake Cummings.
Yeah, I mean, I think he went inside the camera for a second there, which is not the ideal place to be. Taking a very tight line through the final corner. Through the middle comes one of the GTPs, just finding some open road and going straight through it. And again, not too sure why we're seeing Tony Costello take such an inside line. It means that the GTPs are having to find their way through a little bit worse. Jake Cummings, bit of a spin. He's around. Through goes Tony Costello. That couldn't get much easier for the number 17 driver.
Oh, Cummings needs to reverse or go forwards, and now he does get out of the way from the racing line. Where's Matthew Maturo? Oh, he's through. Where's Evan Henneman? He's not quite close enough. So Cummings will stay 8th after that spin. I don't think there was contact, but it was close between Costello and Cummings. We'll see here more definitively. It is very close, isn't it? But I don't think there was contact there between the Corvette and the McLaren. And so Cummings' good recovery drive is still a good one, but it is slightly pegged back a bit now, down to 8th place. This is it again. See the McLaren look, but doesn't make contact. It is a solo spin for Jake Cummings.
Wonder if he looked in the rear view mirror as he went through the corner and saw Costello getting a little bit closer. We'll never really know. But this is now the battle for second in GTP. Shane Larson has caught Brandon Wilson, who of course lost that lead in the pit lane. He's now got 9 minutes to try and hold on to a P2 hit. Shane Larson wouldn't mind another second place. He's, as we've mentioned, had such a great run when he has attended these races so far this season. He's looking to make it yet another top 2 at least, but Brandon Wilson will be doing his absolute hardest, or his best I should say, to stay where he is, because he's had a win and he's had 3 top 3s, but getting a P2, oh no! He's underfueled the car, Ewan.
How has he been jumped by Pat Pelchat in the pit stops and underfueled?
Oh.
That seems almost... Oh, has he got a drive-through? He must have a drive-through. He can't have underfueled. Surely not. I refuse to believe it. And he indeed hasn't underfueled. He has got a drive-through penalty for the incident limit. He will only drop to 5th, which is actually okay, considering he's had a drive-through. But even so, that has cost him a podium.
Yes, and it's going to... I mean, gutting again so late on in the race, but it now remains to be seen if he's going to pick up any more incident points, which could get him closer to even more trouble into the pit lane. But it's going to promote the likes of Menino and Onofre back up to 3rd and 4th. Onofre, who was leading the race and then was back in 5th and then had another moment again and suddenly back up into P4 through others' misfortune. I think it'd be hard for him to get up towards the podium. Menino 7 seconds in front, if anything. Brandon Wilson may become a bit of a problem, only a couple of seconds back, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But Andrew Ellis is keeping an eye on Miguel Rios, and let's see what happens between these two up and towards the hairpin. I think Rios would mind if history repeated itself.
That drive-through, by the way, for Brandon Wilson is making me a bit concerned about how close Shane Larson is to the incident limit, because he's had 2 half spins, which surely would have been 2 X's, at least 1 X. So that's on top of the off-tracks that everyone will have been getting. So slightly concerned about whether Shane Larson might have to do that same trip through pit lane as well, as we go on board with Andrew Ellis there, who's nearly looking up the inside through Dunlop. Didn't quite go for it, and that's probably the best policy, really, as he makes his way now down the inside of another one of the GT3s. And, he gets to the inside of Rios. This battle for 10th place is maybe going to be one of those that stays with us to the end now. Just less than 7 minutes to go.
Only a handful of laps as well, so this race really has evaporated away from us after the pit stop phase, and drivers now really have to get a bit of a hurry up if they want to get these moves done. Rios has been a very competent driver, not through spoon though. He's gone too far wide, and this isn't the Miguel Rios we've come to get used to so far this season. Andrew Ellis now has a chance to get himself inside the top 10. Let's see if he can send it in towards the Casio Triangle. He's not close enough at 130R, but let's see if he can get towards the inside. He's absolutely nowhere near, and if he made the move there, I think we'd be concerned if he'd lost the brake pedal.
Dear oh dear. He thankfully decides to wait for turn 1, because that is going to be a good chance for Ellis here, I think, although the slipstream from the GTP might have just helped Rios there, and his straight line speed looks good as well. In towards turn 1, no chance for Ellis this time round. It looks to the outside, oh careful, looks to the inside now of another one of the GT3s, so this will be the last run through the traffic of course, but they're so spread out now, it will be almost a constant for the remainder of this one. Rios still and hanging on by the looks of things.
Yeah, as they run their way up through Dunlop. This is going to be Matthew Denise and Stecker as they come in towards the opening turn. Denise has got that wrong. He's hit the curb. He's gone into Stecker. And Stecker has taken it into the wall once again. I mean, not his fault this time, unlike when we saw it at the final corner. Oh, and then he spins in sympathy of himself as he tries to re-emerge onto the circuit. But that is not Matthew Denise's finest moment, it's fair to say.
No, that was a pretty colossal misjudgment there, I'm afraid. And he will certainly pay for that in the steward's room, I would have thought. He was trying to chase down those two. We were just watching, actually, but that's very much not happening now as well. As Casey O'Brien come through to split the GT3 battle. probably means we've got 4 laps to go here for these two, unless they get lapped again, in which case it'll be 3, but let's hope they've got enough fuel as we go on board with Matthew Denis. Looks like Pelchak because he's got an Acura, but there's the misjudgment. Bouncing over the curb on the inside didn't help, that's for sure, but either way, it wasn't a smart move, and that much is clear now. There is Pat Pelchak, the real one, in the lead. 4.5 minutes to go, and as I say, 4 laps to go, including the one that he's just begun.
Yeah, he's going to be laughing his way to the checkered flag with the success that he is going to have once again. I mean, if he can get it to the line, it'll be his 4th win of the season. Take that with the, I think it was 8 out of 9 last season. Do not quote me on that. It was at least 7. So he just is racking up these wins now. His drop round will always, therefore, remain 41 points if he doesn't get a drive-through like a couple of other drivers are picking up. I think that was Jake Cummings getting a drive-through, maybe getting a couple too many instant points early on in the race, fighting his way through the field, and he's going to suffer the consequences. But for Pat Pelchak, he suffered no consequences in this race. He's just benefited off of the consequences of others.
Well, he's not got any penalty points so far this season. I wouldn't have thought he'd changing that here. As he crosses the line, it will be 3 laps to go. There will be time left in this race yet, unless he slows down. He hasn't got that much gap behind him, to be honest, so I can't see him doing that in the next few moments. There is Michael Brooks, who can slow down. Not that that would make any difference. He's got 13 seconds behind him right now, and he is cruising. This is exactly the day he needed, although he probably could have, because I believe as well, by the way, he's getting the pole and fastest lap point as well. I think he's getting the full 57 points here tonight for the first time this season. However, he would have liked Jim Felice to not finish on the podium, because as I say, Felice only needs a top 10 next week now.
I mean, Brooks is doing absolutely everything he can. He can't do anything more. He has just been sublime today. He got pole by a relatively good margin, drove away at the opening turn, never looked back. He's extended that gap lap after lap after lap. He was emerging from his pit box whilst others were getting into stop. It's just been an incredible job for him so far in this race, and he's only got 2.5 minutes to get this one to the end.
Yeah, not too long now. This would be his 3rd win of the season. As I say, he would not, or has not, picked up 57 points yet this season. We'll see if that changes tonight. Jim Felice just falling off the back a little bit of Ken Copeland. Miles Brown's been caught by Joey Costello for 4th place, so maybe there is one last battle to be had here in the top 5 of GT3, with Costello recovering and Brown maybe struggling right late on here. We'll see, as the 2 minutes to go marker has been crossed. As I say, still probably 2 laps to go at least for these two as things stand. Costello has got some chances here to make a move.
Yeah, and Costello looking to try and make something to happen at the hairpin, but the GTP is not going to help as they get in towards the tightest of corners here at Suzuka, going off the road even. I believe that is Neil Alexander going the long way around, but he will not be gaining too much time. He is 5 laps down, of course, throughout this race, the problems that he has faced. Joey Costello, is he going to go left? Is he going to go right? Is he going to stay exactly where he is? It's going to be the latter. Spoon, not a place you make a send, but if you can get a good exit out of here, maybe you can have a go to the Casio Triangle for what would be the penultimate time for these guys.
Well, as long as they're laps again. If not, then it might be the 3rd last time. We'll see. Costello gets right into the slipstream, but he pulls out early. Doesn't want to go side by side through 130R, although Brown doesn't necessarily. Well, he finally gets to the racing line, but not convincingly. Costello loses time anyway, though, through the fast left-hander, and so he closes in into the final chicane. Can he get a nice exit here in the Ferrari? It's okay. Oh, he slides, though. It's that little bit at the very end where it's a bit bumpy, and it goes downhill. Things change, it gets difficult, and unfortunately he wasn't quite able to do it on that occasion. Pat Pelchak is not far behind them, I wouldn't have thought, in the background. Will he overtake them here in the last lap? Maybe, but we will see with 20 seconds to go. That's not him in the background, by the way. That's Mathieu Denis tricking me again in 12th place. There is Belchat now, so he's not going to catch those two, I wouldn't have thought. He's got just a few seconds to go, and that might be the... Doesn't Nathan Ray look ridiculous with no rear wing? But anyway, he passes one last GT3. He takes the white flag now here from Suzuka. One more time around for the championship leader and surely champion in waiting in this series.
It looks like a Peugeot hypercar, doesn't it? Or at least a Peugeot hypercar from the last couple of years. But yeah, not what you really want in the GTP at all. It's definitely not designed that way. But these guys will have an extra lap to fight these battles out, and Matthew Maturo will be doing his better defence from Tony Costello. Maturo, a name that really does, he deserves a little bit of credit for the moves he's been able to make to get up into P6. Tony Costello was really fighting up in the top 5. Maturo was fighting just to keep himself inside the top 10. Roles have reversed as Bradley Holly and Timothy Friese-Larsen get a little bit closer into their final pass of turn 1.
Yeah, best result so far this season for Maturo is 7th, so this could be the best so far. Jeff Evans has gone one lap. This race has gone one lap longer than Jeff Evans thought, and he's had to come into pit lane to get some more fuel as Bradley Holly looks to be on his way to another top 10 to add to that tally I was talking about earlier on. He's currently holding on to 7th place, although Timothy Friese-Larsen right behind him will be surely trying to get through. There are multiple battles here, rearing their head right at the very end, and just up in front of them, that looks like Sean Stecker who's gone off again there, or was it another one of the Ferraris, Sean Murphy it might have been, one of the two, in towards Degner 1 as Larsen gets to the outside. It's going to be a real stack up there for Holly, who is going to have Larsen alongside him, 3 wide, oh goodness me, as meanwhile Pat Belchat comes over the line to win here at Suzuka. All he needs to do next week to win the title now is just finish the race. And these two, speaking of which, are not going to. They've smashed into the wall at Spoon Curve. Larsen and Holly end their races in the wall.
And it's a jet fighter crash down towards Spoon. That is a ridiculously fast part of the racing circuit, and I think it's just going to be a case of limp home now. If you're either one of those drivers, big damage I suspect on both of those cars. Bradley Holly not exempt. Let's see it again. Massive hit as they run their way through side by side and hitting into the wall. That is just a huge hit into the wall.
Yeah, Bradley Holly's come up into Larsen there for me, but we'll see what the stewards have to say about that. Miguel Rios and Andrew Ellis, meanwhile, battle in towards the Castillo Triangle, having a look around the outside. Oh dear, they've both gone off. That's the full Max Verstappen treatment there, isn't it? That was Miguel Rios going straight off, and Andrew Ellis as well, and he's forced to give it up. Well, I think he's just hit the incident limit there, and he doesn't quite know what to do. He'll come into pit lane, and Andrew Ellis will get the place in the end. Meanwhile, Michael Brooks is going to come through to take a win when he absolutely needed it. His first time going back-to-back in victories here this season. He's won the opening round of the season. He's now won the 2 latest rounds of this season. As Michael Brooks wins here at Suzuka, he puts himself back in the championship conversation with Jim Police and Ken Copeland, both of whom are going to join him on the podium here tonight.
Yeah, this is a replay of what we saw earlier. Again, what a big moment. I mean, we just had the last 2 minutes worth of action. Could have lasted us a full hour. Let's see it again. They're banging into each other about 4 or 5 times before they actually make the contact that results in that moment. It does seem that Holly's gone a little bit wider, and there's not too much that can be done by Timothy Friese-Larsen, but that's from some angles that we have. I'm sure we'll have to make a better decision. This is Brown and Costello. Costello, goodbye to the number 19. He's gone around. He's going to lose out to... that is Miles Brown. Sorry, losing to Costello. As Maturo finished the lap down. Oh, my word. Drama at the end of the race. I don't know how we've had so much drama in the final lap.
So, Miles Brown was trying to overtake Tony Costello, was it? No, it wasn't Tony Costello. It was someone else who was a lap down. And in trying to do so, spun himself and let Joey Costello pass him. I don't know what he was thinking there. He did not need to pass that car ahead of him at all. But in so trying to, he's cost himself a place. Well, he's still in the top 5 at least, but it's not a great end to the race, I'm afraid, for him. As is that Eduardo Aguilar still not having finished? Or is he just? He has finished. I thought they were cruising round to the end of the race just to taking the mick, to be honest. But anyway, it's us who are instead. Let's have a look at the results here at the end of an hour of racing. Pat Poshat wins again here in the Acura, the BMW's best race of the season so far. That's Shane Larson this time in second place. Dave Menino just holding off Edwin Onofre, who qualified on pole, of course. Casey O'Brien made it 3 Cadillacs in the top 5. The first of the Porsche was with Timothy Vries Larson, despite his long pit stop. Brandon Wilson was next after his drive-through. Andrew Ellis, Jeff Evans and Mathieu Denis all finished or towards the back end of the top 10, I should say. Miguel Rios was towards the back end of the lead lap. Bradley Holly and Nathan Ray finished 1 lap down after retiring at the very end. Neil Alexander and Nicholas Schwartz finished many more down after earlier incidents. In GT3, Michael Brooks wins, but comprehensively, ahead of Ken Copeland and Jim Felice, who now needs a top 10 at Road America to clinch the title. It's Joey Costello and Miles Brown who are the last ones to finish on the lead lap, with Matthew Maturo just holding off Tony Costello towards the end. Evan Henneman, Eduardo Aguiar and Jake Cummings' recovery drive in the end finishes in 10th place. Doug Evans and Dwayne Soon were also a lap down. Sean Secker 2 down and Sean Murphy 5 down after a difficult rogue racing day. Let's have a chat to Pat Poshat, shall we? The race winner tonight from Suzuka again. Welcome in, Pat. Good to have you with us again, and congratulations on another victory. You've not quite mathematically clinched the title, but all you need to do next week is not DNF. How are you feeling after having won here tonight?
Oh my! I take this one. It's a surprise. Honestly, I definitely take it. Like that one. I think the strategy paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this really sort of makes an example of your entire season. I think you'll admit, not the fastest driver on the circuit, over 1 lap, didn't get pole tonight, maybe not even on race pace as well, but you didn't make any mistakes when others around you did, and the strategy, as you say, seemed to play a big role. Is that not just the story of your season put into one night here today?
I think it is. Just choosing my fight. Brandon and Shane were super aggressive at the start. They were both behind me, so I said, like, all right, just go ahead, fight. And I think that's been a recurring theme throughout this season. And more often than not, either something happens to them, or they crash, or they spin, or so I keep it safe and I just do my thing, and just everything clicks. I think that's the story of this season. I was getting into this season kind of on the back foot in terms of pace, because these guys are hella fast, and I think I just managed to pull my pull everything out of every situation to make it work.
Absolutely. Congratulations on doing that once again tonight and winning at Suzuka, and we look forward to seeing you again next week for the last race.
Hell yeah, guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pat Poshat there, the winner tonight here from Suzuka, just ahead of Shane Larson, who finishes in second place. Congratulations, Shane. Good to have you with us. Are you not disappointed to have run Pat a little bit closer, though? Because there was a couple of spins maybe in that race that if you've of course, it's all what ifs and motorsport is, but Shane has left. Don't know whether he's what's going on there, whether he's disconnected or he's just not pleased to talk to me. I don't know. But anyway, he heard me talking and left, so we'll leave him. Dave Menino is there, though. We'll maybe get back to Shane Larson later. We'll bring in Dave instead. Dave, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on a podium here tonight at Suzuka. Just how are you feeling to be on the bottom step of the podium tonight?
Yeah, feels great. I haven't had a podium yet this season, so it's nice to get one on the board. Definitely got a little lucky with, I'm guessing Brandon must have had a drive-through or something, so that promoted me up. But yeah, good clean race overall.
Yeah, we're guessing incident point drama for him there. Was that a big factor here tonight? I was surprised to see him have to come in for a drive-through for incident points. Was it an off-track heavy sort of race?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple spots, like the last chicane, where, if you just cut the corner a little too much, then you can pile them up pretty easy. So I'd say it's not horrible. It's not like a spa or anything, but it's definitely something you got to watch out for.
Well, congratulations on watching out for it and finishing on the podium indeed, Dave. Thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Dave Menino there, finishing in third place. Michael Brooks won in GT3 for the second week in a row, and welcome back, Michael. It's good to have you with us, and congratulations on the win. Are you surprised, maybe not at the win, I'd imagine you will have been feeling confident to have won by this big of a margin, but were you maybe surprised by the size of your victory tonight?
A little bit. I put in quite a bit of practice this past weekend. You know, officials this week gave me a good idea of where I was pace-wise compared to the rest of the grid, but I had no idea that I would show up and be able to lead it by 14 seconds.
Yeah, remarkable, really. You are, as far as my pretty bad calculations go, 17 points behind in the championship. How are you feeling going into the final round behind Jim Felice, of course?
Well, I'm not really looking too much at the championship points. We'll see where I end up. I know it was a long shot to get even caught up to Felice, so all I got to do now is focus and steer the wheel of the pink and teal.
Maybe get 3 in a row as well. Maybe we'll have another phrase I've never heard next week as well.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Keep you on your toes.
Thanks for coming to chat to us, Michael, and congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael Brooks. There, the winner tonight. I'm sort of half hoping he gets on the podium next week, so we can have a third phrase that I've never heard of in a row. Ken Copeland got second with a relatively late pass on Jim Felice, and we can chat to him about that now as well. Welcome in, Ken. Second place for you tonight, just finishing ahead of Jim. Tell us about that pass, first of all. It was a long time coming, you getting past Jim.
Yeah, it took a little bit. Obviously, I had a pretty big brain fart on lap 1, turn 1, and kind of ruined a bit of his wonderful qualifying effort. So made a little bit of a comeback, got past him. He had an outstanding pit stop. He saved 2 seconds, was fuel saving clearly because he made it to the end of the race on pace. So huge kudos on the race pace from Jim's side. But yeah, the last pass towards the end of the race, just kind of trying to hold my line, make sure I don't murder anybody, and keep it nice and clean.
And you're 17 points behind in the championship now. The all-important question is, will you be here next week, and how hopeful are you can maybe catch up some of that margin, if not all of it, on Jim next week?
Yeah, I'll definitely be here next week. I know Mike loves Road America, so he's going to be up there on the podium, I'm sure. Jim's done an outstanding job just all season of being super consistent. You can't beat consistency when people like myself or Mike kind of implode on track or miss rounds. That consistency is what wins you championships. I fully expect him to come out. He's going to mind his P's and Q's, put in a really good qualifying time, probably a really good race, and he's going to lock this one up for sure.
All right, well, we'll see next week for sure. Ken, congratulations on second tonight, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for the awesome broadcast week to week.
Thanks very much. Ken Copeland in their second place here tonight in GT3, just ahead of Jim Felice, who we can also chat to now. Welcome in, Jim. We've just been chatting to Ken about that battle for second place. Tell us your side of the story later on there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly an eventful race tonight. I think Ken and I went back and forth a couple times. Had a little bit of an incident there on lap 1 as well. But, I think he had me on pace tonight. Towards the end, I was also a little up there because of some of the earlier incidents on incident points. And was a little tight on fuel. So I think, at that point it was, discretion is the better part of valor at that stage of the race, and just wanted to bring it home as high up as I could and in one piece. So.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good idea considering the championship situation. As far as my maths goes, you're 17 points ahead of both Michael Brooks and Ken Copeland, who are tied on points after tonight, as far as my maths goes. And that would mean you'd require a top 10 next week at Road America to seal the title. How much are you thinking about that, and how are you looking forward to next week, knowing what you have to do to clinch the title?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it last week too, but it would be great to make that race, but unfortunately I have another commitment, so I'm actually going to miss the last race of the season. So, I think that factored into it too. I knew Ken was going to have kind of that additional race in hand on me, and overall I think it's been a great season. It's vastly exceeded my expectations in terms of the number of top 5s I've been able to pull off, the number of times I've been on the podium, and certainly didn't expect to be up here for the championship lead. So. A little bit unfortunate, but I guess that evens out because Ken missed a couple races too.
It's true. You did tell me, and I've completely forgotten. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, sorry to be a letdown on the championship fight there, right. But it's been a good season regardless.
Well, it leaves the other two tied on points next week. So there you go. That removes maths for us, if anything else. If you like. No, thanks very much for the entertainment you've provided this season, Jim. It's a shame not to see you next week, of course, but a great season from yourself, and a great consistency as well. Congratulations on a podium tonight again, and we will hopefully see you next season.
Yeah, that's the plan. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Jim Feliz there, third place, exposing my memory and its shortages once again. He will not be here by the sounds of things next week, and unless the other two DNF, then he will not be the champion in that case, although he did have the chance to seal it tonight. Again, things would have needed to very much go his way, that's for sure. Suzuka is over and done with then. Next week, Darragh, it's Road America, and a great way to end off the season with what sounds like a very exciting GT3 Championship to seal coming up.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Jim Feliz could still win it, couldn't he? It depends if the others finish the race or not. So, the options are open. At least he's out in front to begin with. He's always got the chance. I mean, thinking about the GTPs, you'll never guess who won the last time we went to Road America in the GTPs. Yep, it was Pat Pelchat. So we'll see if he can do it again. And whilst you were conducting those interviews, I've done my little stat packs again of useless information. That is Pat Pelchat's 19th GTP win out of the 46 times we've run it. And we also passed 1,400 laps completed in the PRL GTPs. So there you go. You're gonna wish you knew that one sooner, aren't you?
Very. I'm always pleased to hear these stats at the end of the night. I enjoy them. Make sure you join us again in 1 week's time for Road America. We'll be back here from 9 p.m. ET. And don't forget to join us for all of next week for PRL Action on RaceSpotTV, because it's finals week, apart from on Tuesday night, of course. In every single championship, as I say, apart from Tuesday night, there is a mathematical chance that the title can be overturned by the current championship leader, starting on Sunday night in the Cup Series, where we've got 3 drivers separated by just 6 points going into Atlanta Motor Speedway in a few days' time. So I very much hope that you will join us then. For now, though, I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Darragh Thacker, and Justin Ollis has been behind the cameras. We'll see you in the GTP GT3 Series in 1 week's time at Road America. Very much hope you can join us then. For now, though, goodbye.